Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to explore a very important time in India's history. We'll look at how the great suffering after the First World War created a situation where a new kind of freedom struggle could begin, a struggle led by a new leader, Mahatma Gandhi.
So here's our plan for today. First, we'll understand the hardships that people were facing right after the war. Then, we'll talk about the return of Mahatma Gandhi and the new idea he brought with him, Satyagraha. We'll look closely at what this idea means, see how it worked in his first few movements, and finally, we'll see how all of this set a completely new path for India's freedom struggle.
All right, let's begin. The years following 1919 were a time of great difficulty all across India. To really understand why things changed so much, we first need to understand the situation people were living in every single day.
Just try to imagine the feeling. The Great War was finally over. All over India, people were hoping, really hoping that their difficulties would finally end and that better days were coming. But that hope, well, it didn't last long. Instead of getting better, things actually got much, much worse. Think about this for a moment. Between 1913 and 1918, the prices of everyday things like food and cloth, they doubled. Can you imagine if your family's weekly budget for food suddenly needed to be twice as much? This caused extreme hardship for ordinary people. So, what was causing all this suffering? Well, there were many reasons. The British government had spent a lot of money on the war, and to pay for it, they raised taxes on Indians. They even introduced an income tax for the first time. But it wasn't just about money. They were also forcing men from villages to join the army. On top of that, crops failed and a terrible disease spread across the country. Let's look at this term a little more closely. Forced recruitment. What does it mean? Well, it was a process where the colonial government would go into villages and force men to join the army. As you can imagine, this caused a lot of anger in the countryside, as families saw their sons and husbands taken away against their will. And as if all of this wasn't bad enough, there was more. First, crops failed in many parts of India, which led to terrible food shortages. And then a devastating influenza epidemic swept through the country. According to the census of 1921, it's estimated that between 12 and 13 million people died because of the famines in this epidemic. Just think about that number, a truly staggering loss of life. It was at this very moment when people were feeling so helpless and desperate that a new leader appeared. And he came with a completely new idea for how to struggle against injustice. That leader, of course, was Mahatma Gandhi. He came back to India in January of 1915 after living for many years in South Africa. And he didn't come back empty-handed. He came back with a powerful new method for fighting injustice, a method he had already tested and proven. You see, while he was in South Africa, he had successfully fought against the racist government there using this new method of mass protest. Here in this picture, you can see him leading Indian workers in a completely nonviolent march against unfair laws. This was the experience he was now bringing to India. So what was this revolutionary new method? Well, let's take a closer look at the powerful idea that he called Satyagraha. The word Satyagraha itself is very meaningful. It comes from two Sanskrit words, Satya, which means truth, and Agraha, which means holding firm. So Satyagraha literally means holding firmly to the truth. The idea was simple but powerful. If your cause is true and you are fighting against injustice, then you don't need physical force to fight your oppressor. And Gandhiji explained it best in his own words. He said Satyagraha is not physical force. A person practicing it, a satyagrahi, does not cause pain to their opponent. They don't want to destroy them. He called it pure soul force. The goal was to appeal to the conscience of the other person, to help them see the truth. So this shows us the huge difference. Physical force tries to win by hurting or destroying the opponent. Satyagraha, on the other hand, tries to win by appealing to the opponent's conscience. It's not a weapon of aggression. It's a weapon of truth, of nonviolence, and of immense moral strength. Now, an idea is one thing, but making it work in the real world is something else entirely. After coming to India, Mahatma Gandhi showed that Satyagraha could bring real results by successfully organizing movements in different places. Let's just follow his journey for a moment. In 1917, he went to Champaran in Bihar. There, he inspired the peasants to stand up against a very unfair plantation system. In that same year, he went to Kedah in Gujarat to support peasants whose crops had failed and couldn't pay their taxes.
And then in 1918, he was in Ahmedabad, where he organized a movement for cotton mill workers. In every single one of these places, he used the principles of Satyagraha, and in every single place, he was successful.
You can imagine the impact of these victories. For the very first time, people in India saw a leader who could help them win their battles without using any violence. These successes proved that moral courage, when combined with the participation of many people, was a truly powerful force against injustice. So, let's bring everything together. On one side, you had a country full of people who were suffering deeply after the war. And on the other, you had the arrival of a new leader with a completely new idea. This combination created a new path forward for India's freedom struggle. So this is the key connection for us to understand. The widespread hardship created a situation where people were ready for a large-scale movement. They were ready to fight back. And Mahatma Gandhi's idea of Satyagraha gave them the perfect method, a way to fight that was both powerful and peaceful. These early successes were really just the beginning. The seeds for a much larger national movement had been planted. And this leaves us with a very important question to think about. With these new tools of truth and nonviolence, how would India's struggle for freedom change forever?